come well prepared this time.
In your Friday sermon of 3rd of February this year, you briefly mentioned about an atomic clock invented by the scientists.
Not invented. That is a very simple affair. There is nothing of invention in it. It's a hand-run clock. It's just a clock with needles which are moved by the fingers of hand.
Which foretells of the atomic wars.
No, it doesn't foretell either. The point is, which perhaps I failed to make it clear, that the scientists judge for themselves whether the time of atomic war is closing in or moving farther away. And to express their opinion in terms of time, they move the clock either closer to 12 o'clock or away from it. That is what it is.
And can I just...
Yes, please continue to misquote me.
Also related it to the crises which are taking place in the escape from there. Would you please kindly explain a little more?
Now, which one, the clock or the history of Ahmadiyya?
The relationship.
It's quite right. What I tried to explain was this factor that in the history of Ahmadiyya, there have been periods of crisis. And the closeness of the clock to 12 o'clock also tallies to some extent with those periods of crisis. So there is no direct relationship between this, but in Allah's eyes maybe there is some relationship. And more the world tramples upon the right of Ahmadiyya to exist globally and at par with the rest of the human beings, the more likelihood there appears to be for the final devastation of the world. That was the inference I was drawing, and I quoted the instances when the clock moved closer to 12 o'clock and what was happening to Ahmadis at that time.
Hazur, the Holy Quran is full with words yadkhuluna fi abada or la khawfun alayhim wa la hum yahzanun. And abada we interpret people who are destined to go to Jahannam means a longer period. For people, for Jannah we say ever and forever. But Hazrat Masih Maud alayhi salatu wasalam in one of his books has said, a time will come when the entire setup will be completely destroyed. Is this not a contradiction of God's promise which He made Khalidina Fiha Abada, the Jannatis, and His subsequent action? And if I am right in my interpretation, does it mean that God will destroy Hazrat Muhammad Mustafa Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam?
Hazrat Islam has never mentioned this. Never in one place, in any place. The fact is that Hazrat Masih Islam has only mentioned this about Jahannam, about the reformatory, in which people will be kept for some time until they are worthy of being chosen by Allah for His nearness, which is heaven, of course. So that will be destroyed, that machinery, because there will be no one left ultimately. So I think you must have misunderstood it completely. And you kindly find out the passage and show me again, will you? Then you will be able to follow what it means. Please, yes.
In our student ladies meeting, we are writing a book in which there are pictures of mosques and some patterns.
In the meeting you are writing the book?
No, we are discussing the
discussing the preparation of the book.
Yes. There was a word Allah. One artist has drawn the letters of this word and made them in the shape of a candle.
Like this one.
Make it like this.
Yes.
And I very strongly objected to this.
I think you're rightly so.
Yes.
Rightly
You
so.
cannot change your
There shouldn't be any process of decoration of the word Allah physically, apparently. because that will ultimately mislead you.
Thank you very much.
It should be left as simple as possible. Yes, please. No, don't make it a place of debate between yourselves. If you have a contradiction, something to say against his view, that is now against my view as well, you better write to me later on.
You gave me permission to ask questions.
Oh, that's right, yes.
You see, I seek your blessed guidance in certain matters when we go to see some political figures and to the press people. Yesterday, I met the Speaker of the House of Commons, Mr. Reverend Croydon.
Yes.
And I explained all the situation.
Does he belong to Croydon?
Yes, he is Northeast Croydon.
Right.
And I took some of my members from Croydon and we had appointment and explained already. He sympathized with our views that this persecution is inhumane and against the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. But during that conversation, it involved some sort of the work of Tahir Archive as well. By chance, I took some pamphlets to present in the end, which explained what is our view and what are our views. He said, it is the first time I knew what are your views. And it is a very good thing that you should see all the MPs of your area. Next Friday, I am going to see another MP who is also one of the officials. Now, Hazur, my question is that during this conversation, I seek your guidance, what principles I should keep in mind briefly, and how I coordinate the work of the Yadata in that situation, which should be very effective.
Please sit down. When you meet different people, will the situation remain the same? Or will it vary from person to person?
It varies from person.
So how can I answer you about a situation which varies from person to person? The principle is that every Ahmadi should keep his eyes open and watch for his possibilities and openings. And the moment he gets an opening into one's mind and heart, he must enter it and tell him that I am carrying a gift of Allah for you. So it all depends on what sort of person you are talking to, his attitude to life, his personal bearing, and so many things will determine how to appeal to him or appeal to his best nature for making you interested in Islam. So the attitude is the right attitude. You should be ready. And that readiness you showed, and Allah helped you too. That is the most important thing. Dawat Allah is the most fundamental thing for us, for our survival. Because if you get yourself involved in Dawat Allah, whether these people in any way sympathize with you or not, that will be completely irrelevant. It is Allah who will help you and Allah is going to save you. We are making these efforts only because we are told by Allah to do whatever is in your power to do. But this is not our dependence. We only depend upon Allah, and the succor will come only from Allah, not from any other power. This I assure you. So go on doing your bit in every direction. But the most important direction is the direction of prayers. It is there where the battle is going to be decided. I assure you, nowhere else. When during the war of Badr, the battle of Badr, a few Muslims were fighting in the battlefield, and Hazrat Dr. Muhammad Mustafa was fighting in his tent alone, the battle of prayer. And the battle was decided in his tent, not in the battlefield. Because feed all the facts to a computer, and the answer to that battle, which was being fought in the battlefield, would have been a complete devastation for the Muslims and total annihilation of the Muslim forces. But that tent decided the fate of that battle. So it is the battle at night in which Ahmadis will be involved and are involved already, I know, which is going to decide the fate for us, inshallah. Yes, please. Yes, I had wanted to name later on. Sam, your brother Akram has left for Libya?
Yes, he went on Friday, yesterday.
Yesterday?
He's gone, yes.
So I received his letter after he had left, unfortunately. So I couldn't meet him actually.
I'll tell you.
You kindly let him know.
Okay. I'd like to humbly ask you, what is the relevance of dreams we have? Some are whether taken seriously or not. Children have dreams as well. What is the real relevance behind
It all depends on what sort of dreams they are. There are Azghasul Ahlam as well, according to the Holy Quran. And there are true dreams as well. So it is for the knowledgeable people who know the art of interpreting dreams to find out which dream stands for what. And secondly, it's the person himself who can decide. Because if one is shown a dream from God, number one, it is symbolic, and it has a very deep impression on the person who sees the dream. And then later on, by its fulfillment, one is positive that that dream was really from Allah. So the machinery of dream is in every man. Had there not been any machinery for seeing dreams, how could Allah show dreams? He couldn't have so ill-planned the things that in the one place he had decided to show dreams to his chosen people, and in the other place he did not provide for the machinery. So the machinery of dreams is there for everybody. So if not activated by Allah, by its own internal forces it is activated many times. But those dreams are called Azghasul Ahlam. Meaningless, purposeless, just the dreams of one's thoughts and intentions and hidden forces, hidden psychic forces. And the other dream which comes from Allah stands distinctly apart. It has a message, it has a language, like the language that was used at the time of the Yusuf, you know that. No, you first please. After him.
When we see the life of Nabi Kareem Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, he has always stress on, praying for the people. Oh God, guide them, because they don't know what I am. But in Quran we have read, when the prophets have been tortured so much, they had to say, Rabbi la tazar al-kafirin min al-dayyar. La tazar al-kafirin dayyar. So we sometimes had to...
You are generalizing things too much. Quoting one single instance of Hazrat Nuh, you have generalized it to all the prophets, while I don't see the same sort of prayer at the lips of other prophets at all, in the Holy Quran or in other books.
Well,
the fact is, you have missed another verse, which is connected with this. Allah Himself tells Hazrat Nuh, before he was made to pray by Allah, that whoever was to believe in you has believed. And the rest of the world, the rest of his people in fact, not the entire world, was not destined to believe. Once he knew that, then he prayed to Allah when they were not destined to believe. And as Allah wanted him to pray, they should be destroyed, because they have lost the purpose of their existence, of the purpose of their creation. So that was what was directed to Hazrat Nuh by Allah Himself. There is no contradiction in it.
But we sometimes, when we feel that we have been tortured so much, and our holy people have been tortured so much, we, sometimes feel to pray like that.
Well, I can't change you. It's up to everybody to behave as is. One thing is very certain, that those who have been wrong have a right to revenge themselves only to the extent to that which they have been wrong, to the extent that they have been wrong. So this is a right, and nobody can take away that right. But there are better and higher teachings which improve the man and lift his status to greater heights. And these are the teachings of Hazrat Muhammad Mustafa Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, which stress upon your praying for your enemy. So if anybody cannot rise to that height, he is not to be censured. It's for Allah to decide whose prayers he will accept. Yours or somebody else's who is praying and not wishing ill of anybody. You understand? Much okay. This is just request. Yes, please.
I will like to ask also questions about this crisis.
No, anything. All sorts of questions, but one question at a time.
I just want to ask whether it's allowed to buy houses on loan, mortgage in this country.
Yes.
It's just a bit, I'll ask some...
Now, all the questions pertaining to fiqh, I have made it clear many a time that all the questions pertaining to fiqh should be first directed to Mufti Silsila. And if he is satisfied that he can handle that question alone, he will answer the inquirer. If he is not very clear in his mind about the answer, he will refer that question to Majlis-e-Ifta, a body of scholars who will decide that issue, but before decision, they will recommend the case to Khalifatul Masih. And then he makes the final decision. This is the process. So you follow that process.
I asked Sheikh Saab, but even though...
Sheikh Saab is not the Mufti.
Right.
Mufti Silsila is Malak Saifur Rahman Sahib. You better write to him and follow his advice. There are certain situations which make a decision very difficult. Things are right and things are wrong, but at times they are so interwoven and intermixed that for one individual to change the whole scheme of things in a country is impossible. So there are necessities, but that is again a generalization. So one has to be very cautious in making certain movements and see for himself whether his own conscience permits him to do that or not. That is the first rule one should follow. And in such situations, the second rule is La tasalu an ashya'in in tubda lakum tasukum. If you know positively a thing to be wrong, don't do it. If you are in doubt, you better not do it. But if doubts are on one hand, and you don't know positively whether it's wrong or right, there are doubts on one hand, and an extreme necessity of situation on the other, then you may ask or you may not ask, and the answer may be very difficult for you to accept. Yes, please.
I would like to refer one statement given by Tahir Archive, the leader of Kashmir, about this ordinance in which he praised the President of Pakistan that he has courageously taken steps at this moment about the community to stop the call of prayer by the community. All these things. On the other hand, in the same statement, he asked the President, in the same manner, in the same courage, he should make a general election immediately. That means, on the one hand, he stopped the call of prayer by Ahmadiyya community, and then he called the President to call the general election immediately. What is the relation between a religious denomination in Pakistan and this political call of general election? I'm sorry.
better put this question to Sardar Abdul Qayyum Khan. Yes, please. The question was that he read a statement by Sardar Abdul Qayyum Khan. Sardar Abdul Qayyum or Khan, I don't know whether Khan is that or not. But let's call it Sardar Abdul Qayyum. First of all, congratulating Sadr Ziaul Haq for this bold and wise step about Ahmadis. And in the same breath, he demanded that now be courageous enough to hold the general elections as well. So he asked me what was the relationship between these two observations. I said, ask Sardar Abdul Qayyum Khan. He would know better. Yes, please. Any other questions? Yes? I will step forward or speak loudly.
When we study the history of the prophets, we find that they act like a shield as long as they are residing in the country against any visitation of God. When they leave that country, the visitation of Allah is unleashed upon them. Now, since the rule that you are here, is this a sign that very soon Allah's wrath?
Things will have changed in Pakistan. You should also pray for that. Don't call it a migration at all. And thirdly, even when the prophets left, it was not necessary that Allah destroyed or should have destroyed those people. What happened to the people of Jonah, Hazrat Yohanna? No, I'm sorry, Yunus. He is Yunus. He's called Jonah, isn't it? Hazrat Yunus, you know that. The Prophet had migrated and left them, but Allah saved them because they repented. So why not pray for their repentance if ever that happens, or if it has any similarity to that occasion? Even then, this should be the Ahmadi's first choice. The prayer to Allah that Allah may give them opportunity and sense to repent and mend their ways. Please come. Yes, please.
In Holy Quran, Surah Saf, the coming of the Messiah is clearly mentioned. And the condition is goes to opposition. The common cause of the common Messiah is successful. Just wondering, and other people read that very beautifully. It's very clear to me, and I read it.
So it's an observation, not a question.
But it's just a reason that I don't understand.
My answer is thank you. You're on the right path. Yes, please.
I have an observation that people who do stutter normally,
Who?
people who do stutter normally,
Yes, right.
do not stutter at all when they recite the Holy Quran. Can you explain the reason behind it?
The fact is that whenever they sing anything, they don't stutter. So the psychologists recommend this remedy for those who stutter. And they say to adopt a sing-song tone or go on singing passages from various verses in poems so that ultimately you get rid of this habit of fear, in fact. So because Holy Quran is generally recited in a singing tone, so that is what helps. Yes, please.
Often you have tried to explain things by turning to science. And I think day before yesterday you said that the Holy Quran predicted evolution 1400 years ago. Now, most scientists will tell us that all laws are very temporal. It's more likely to be smashed.
Beg your pardon?
That all scientific laws are not absolute.
That's right.
So are you justified in saying that the Quran predicts evolution, but tomorrow evolution may be smashed?
No, I'm not saying that at all. And nor do you understand the saying which you have attributed to scientists correctly. You know, theories go on changing, but the facts remain the same on which the theories are built. The facts of life which science presents do not change. The theories, that is the inference from those facts, after finding them in one arrangement, are different, and when you reorganize them in another arrangement, they are different. Yet despite the fact that many a time the theory changes, the first theory is not wrong either. It was applicable in those given circumstances, in that given set arrangement. So when you talk of science in that given circumstances and set arrangement, it is unchangeable. It remains unchangeable. But new light is thrown upon different things. For example, what is changing is not the fact that evolution what is changing about evolution is not evolution, the concept of evolution as such itself. After it was accepted by the world at large, it has never changed. The philosophy of evolution has been changing. New facts are being presented to scientists which throw different lights from the concept held before that. For example, Darwin laid a great stress upon natural selection. At that time, the chemistry of life was not so well known as it is so well known today. And to say that natural selection played a part is okay. That is not rejected. But to say that natural selection was entirely responsible for evolution of animal species, and it was capable of bringing about internal chemical changes, that is what has been rejected. But the theory of evolution remains intact. So when I said about the Holy Quran, I said the Holy Quran very clearly defines evolution and describes its various stages, right from the beginning to the end, and speaks of an evolution which is a life phenomenon, which continues even today. So that can never be rejected by science, and has never been rejected at any stage by science. Yes, please.
There's been a lot of research done into test tube babies nowadays. Is this going against the laws of God?
To attribute things to Allah which He has never mentioned is fundamentally wrong. What Allah wants is preservation and purity of the human reproductive system which Allah has Himself designed for mankind. Now, if that is not hit, the sanctity of that system and the purity of that system is not hit, nothing is wrong. So if a husband and wife are helped, a couple, husband and wife are helped in giving birth to babies, whatever scientific measures are adopted, they are not against the verdict of Islam.
Can one ask two questions?
First one, please. Yes?
Me?
You said two questions, I said one, and you have changed your mind about the one.
I just want to know that people who donate their organs, is it
That I
right?
told yesterday is okay with
Sorry,
Islam.
yes.
The fact is, the fundamental decisive factor is this, that Islam creates a state of sacrifice. That's number one. Islam permits the sacrifice of one living being for the sake of saving the life of another. That is quite not only permissible but promoted in Islam. Thirdly, Islam says that a sure value in life will not be sacrificed for an uncertain value. Now, if by taking out an organ of a living being, you attempt to save the life of another with a positive danger to that living being from which that organ has been extracted, that will not be permissible in Islam. But if no harm is done, or there is a greater probability that no harm would come to one living person in the attempt of saving another's life, that is permissible. Yes, please.
Assalamualaikum.
Yes?
Huzur, when we are talking about the marriage, the relation of husband and wife, I would like to ask a question that the boys these days are very keen on having an interview of the girl before they get married. I mean, to talk to her and get to know, what.
There is no harm. There is no harm if it is done in the presence of the elders of the family, and they are introduced and they are made to talk to each other for that purpose. There is no harm at all. It is permissible.
Sorry, but it is not, is it
But not, they must not be allowed to have dates. That is quite a different proposition altogether.
No, I mean, is it not insulting for the girls that after the interview, I mean...
That is for the parents to decide.
No, I mean, if it is...
If they feel insulted, they should submit. Situations change, of course. For example, in relationship, in friendship, with family friendships, things can be organized in a manner that the girl would have no idea. For example, you invite somebody to the table, and as the Holy Quran permits, in certain situations, for even friends to participate in dining at the same table with the family members, keeping in view the spirit of Islamic Parda, of course. So when it is permitted in the Holy Quran, how can one stop it, particularly in such situations? So if you intelligently organize things, no harm can come to anybody, and nobody should feel insulted about these things. But if you go about it, without common sense, then things can hurt both ways.
No, I mean, the girls' parents are never keen on having this interview to be done. But it's the
Then
boys...
don't go for that boy. Reject him outright.
Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum.
Can you please explain where Hajar al-Aswad, the black stone, comes from?
The black? I explained this quite at length, not only in one session, but I think 2 or 3 other sessions in Rabwa, in Karachi, in Lahore. And I think that is published, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think so.
Here as well.
But not in English, perhaps. Now I'll tell you in brief, there is a possibility, to my mind, there is a possibility that when first time the foundation of Khana Kaaba was laid, the original stones which were used in those, this is a remnant from those. And this is a historical stone because the first ever stone used for the creation of House of Allah is still available for man to see and touch. So out of love for that particular stone, which has a very great historical value, we revere it. Otherwise, in itself, it has no point of reverence. That is one possibility. And there is another possibility combined with this. I mean, not either this or that, but another possibility combined with this, which has been mentioned by Hazrat Muhammad Mustafa sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He says that the Hajar Aswad came from heaven, and it was white before it entered the heavenly atmosphere, the earthly atmosphere, and because of sins of mankind, it got black. Now, it is a symbolic language. What may have happened, one can easily conceive, would be this, that area in which Khana Kaaba is built is generally deprived of building stones. Or maybe it is not because of that. I have not myself seen that area. Maybe the building stones are available near enough. But Allah wanted to send something from heaven as a symbol. So some meteors might have fallen in that area. And whatever the color of the meteor before it enters the earthly atmosphere, there is every possibility of its being burnt down and charred black, because it does happen. So that may be the incident to which Hazrat Muhammad Mustafa sallallahu alaihi wasallam was referring. And the symbolic message is also carried in this, that however clean one's life is, if he is influenced by sin, he is blackened. And that is just another side message which is carried by this tradition. So, to visualize the reality of what happened, there is a great possibility that these two things might have occurred together simultaneously. The first stones used for the building of Khana Kaaba might have been the meteorite showering on earth, and from that stone which is still left intact is Hajar Aswad. It is just a conjecture because positively you can't say. Yes, please. Yes, after I have just permitted a gentleman to ask a question. After that, it will be your turn, please.
Yes, it's very nice to see you again. My question really follows on about marriage, and we were talking before about the engagement. My question really follows the engagement, and it's quite simple.
Are you married?
No, I'm not.
Oh, very, very,
I'd really like to know if it's wrong for Muslim parents to practice contraception.
Yes, I'll explain that.
Thank you.
It is said that is it wrong for Muslim parents to practice contraception, birth control? The fact is that Islam does not prohibit birth control except for one reason alone. And that reason has been mentioned in the Holy Quran in very clear terms. La taqtulu awladakum min khashyati imlaq. Do not kill your offspring, your progeny, for the fear of paucity of means of livelihood, for the fear that you will be left with less means of livelihood, while your children would outnumber your capacity to feed them. This is what is called khashyati imlaq. So for this reason, it is positively prohibited. And this is in fact the only reason for which the world governments are advocating birth control. This is a reflection upon God, and a very bad reflection for that matter. If Allah is a complete and perfect planner, one of the two things must be accepted as truth, or maybe both have their part to play in the scheme of things. Number one, it's impossible for God to create human beings and give them a rate of spread much faster than can be sustained by the available natural resources. If there is no accord in the two, then Allah would be a very poor planner. That is one situation. The other is that from time to time, one wheel runs a bit ahead and the other is left a bit behind, but not without a purpose, to create certain situations and to gain certain positive ends in the larger scheme of things. Now, in either case, birth control has no justification. In the first place, there is no need. In the second place, you will be frustrating the plan of things made by Allah, where He intentionally wants such things to happen for a while. That is one general answer to this. The other, more factual explanation of the situation is this, that despite the claim that the means of livelihood are progressing by mathematical progression and the human race is progressing by geometrical progression, this is why there are so many trials for the people who suffer hunger and destitution and everything. This is one explanation, and this is called Malthus theory. While the fact is that if you work it backwards, this will be proved wrong. According to his theory, if this population is worked backward, which we find today, the human race will end within the last 200-300 years to be finished. So there are other factors which have been missed by him and other scholars of this field. Secondly, man has always been facing hunger at various times in history. This factor is completely forgotten by these so-called philosophers. When the population of mankind was very small, even then man faced hunger. When it increased, even then it faced hunger. There is a set proportion, a relationship between suffering and the number of mankind, which is not changeable. It is a constant. What factors determine it? I know some of them, but it will be a different, a full address on that subject separately. But one thing I assure you, the phenomena works most scientifically. Allah tells us that إِن مِّن شَيْءٍ إِلَّا عِندَنَا خَزَائِنُهُ وَمَا نُنَزِّلُهُ إِلَّا بِقَدَرٍ مَّعْلُومٍ. That we have vast resources of everything, and those resources can never be exhausted because unending resources are available to us. But we disclose it to mankind according to a set plan. That is the relationship between man and his resources. So, if you look back at history, you will find that there was a time when the only fuel available was the firewood. And if mankind kept on burning and consuming that firewood, it would be completely without sources of energy now today. But before man had finished those stocks, available stocks, he found that under the earth, firewood had fire sources could be available in the form of coal or coke, a different shape of the same wood, in fact. So it started using that energy. At the same time, there is a correlationship between human progress and the discovery of energy sources. When man entered the coal age, that was the time of developmental development when he knew other uses of energy which could only be fulfilled by coal and not by firewood. He had progressed scientifically to that stage, where not just for the sake of energy, but just for the sake of meeting the requirements of his scientific knowledge, the existence of coke or coal was a must. So it continued for some time until man started wondering whether the stocks of coal would last him any longer. And then oil was discovered. And when oil was discovered, the man had developed enough mentally and scientifically to put oil to such uses where coal was completely useless and firewood could not be used. Internal combustion engine was in the process of making, and planes were in the process of making. So these things tally completely with the scheme of things. I mean, it's not just an disorganized occurrence. It is a very well organized occurrence. إِن مِّن شَيْءٍ إِلَّا عِندَنَا خَزَائِنُهُ وَمَا نُنَزِّلُهُ إِلَّا بِقَدْرٍ مَّعْلُومٍ. So we go on disclosing new sources of energy. Now the atomic age has started. Even if the oil resources are completely out of stock, completely finished, man would have positively attained some source of energy before this happens to suffice him for quite a long time and in a better manner. Scientific progress would have definitely provided him with certain discoveries where oil was useless and only new sources of energy could work. So the man would enter a new era. So to do something as a reflection upon this God, a complete planet, would be a very wrong thing to do. This is why Allah says that don't indulge in birth control, having a reflection upon my scheme and fearing that I perhaps plan things very stupidly like men do. Because of that, I don't permit you to do that. Otherwise, for other reasons, you are permitted.
Thank you, sir.
Now, from the lady's side, there was a question.
Could you please explain the term which implies certain conditions, which I think go against the fundamentals of Islamic social philosophy?
Could you kindly come closer to the mic or speak a bit loudly?
Could you please explain the term al-kufr, which implies...
Al-kufu. Yes.
Kufur.
Al-kufu.
Which implies certain conditions, which I think go against the fundamentals of the Islamic social philosophy.
What kufu means? Is that what you want to find out?
Well, from what I understand, I think it's like when two people get married, this means that they should come from a similar background. But our teachers...
You know, kufu means something which fits in as a complementary to the other thing. Like fitting the jigsaw puzzle, one piece is fitted into another and there is no friction and no loopholes to fill. That is perfect kufu. Kufu means the system of complementing. So if something is incomplete without another, and that part fits into it, that is ideally the kufu. This is why Allah has no kufu, because He is complete by Himself. He does not lack any part to come and make Him complete. So man and wife are to be treated like this. I mean, if a wife is to be sought by man or husband is to be sought by a woman, This is the principle which should guide them. When you find a true kufu, there is no friction of any sort left. There is a complete harmony and they work like one piece of a machinery. If you ignore certain things and there is disharmony or tensions or contradictions between the two, then it will be very difficult to run a smooth life or an ideal life. Now it's very difficult for human beings to judge how to go about it. Hazrat Muhammad Mustafa sallallahu alaihi wasallam has given us a guideline. He says, for the believers, the most important and fundamental thing to go for is taqwa, being pious in attitude. If somebody is pious-minded, is righteous, is good as far as religion is concerned, even if in other things he is lacking kufu, this is a very great cushioning which will help sustain the shock of differences of opinion and things. If a man is pious, then lack of kufu in other fields can be offset. If the man is a worldly person, materialistic in approach, then the lack of kufu will be pronounced to a degree where life can become a hell for the couple. So this is why Rasul Kareem sallallahu alaihi wasallam has advised to find the kufu, go first and foremost for piety. If piety is there, then you should rest assured that life will be all right, because other lackings would be more than well provided. Yes, please.
I would like to find out, is it permissible about these insurances which we have to undergo every day on the houses, cars, etc., everything?
Well, this issue has been decided and made public and has been published in Al-Fadl and has been made known to all the Jamaats. I wonder why you don't know the answer.
Well, actually, I'm a little bit in doubt about it, so I thought if you can told it, but I don't listen to this.
You know, I've said it so many times that it has become boring for me now to go on repeating the answer to the same question over and over and over again. This issue has been decided and you better ask your Imam. He will provide you with the decision of the Jamaat. Please. Well, it's given us.
If you could,
You are going to speak in that, yes.
If you could give us your interpretation of the phrase, he who knows himself knows his Lord.
That's right. It's a beautiful phrase. The question is, can you give us an interpretation of the phrase, he who knows himself knows his Lord? The fact is that Allah has created man on nature and every man on nature. So if one is true to his nature, in himself he will find the workings of his Lord, because nature is closest to Allah and there is no contradiction between nature and Lord. So if one knows himself, that is, one keeps his nature intact. That is the prerequisite of knowing himself. If he has distorted his nature, how can he know himself? He would never know himself. So it does not mean that every man, whether good or bad, if he knows himself, he will know his Lord. It's impossible. Because somebody knows himself as a bad man and somebody knows himself as a good man. So there will be a contradiction in the concept of Lord. For everyone, there will be a different Lord, one wicked and one pious. So that is what it does not mean at all. It only means that if one knows himself as he should be, knows his true being, and that one can only know if he has not helped himself distort his personality. So only the true people can know their Lord. That is what it means. Yes, please. For Islam?
Recently, there is a lot of discussion that Jesus didn't die on cross,
Yes.
and there was a recent essay in the Reader Digest also about it. What's the reaction of the Muslims about nowadays? What they think?
Muslims are no longer concerned with death or life of Jesus. They are not even concerned with their own death or life. This is the most tragic affair, most tragic part of the Muslims' life, that they are gradually being indifferent to the most fundamental issues, and they don't care. Only Ahmadis revive this for them, and when they try to convince them, many times they get the answer that all right, let Jesus die. What then? What is it to us? While the fact is that it is all to them. And Ahmadi should explain this fact to them, that it is a very fundamental question which must not be permitted to die, because it is a life and death question for the Muslims. If Jesus is alive, naturally, without any doubt, he will descend from heaven himself, because he would not be kept alive by God for 2000 years or so without any purpose, and shifted to heaven, some safe place, away from human torture. Why? What was the purpose? Obviously, he was to descend again. So if he is alive, we must look upwards for Jesus to reappear from the heavens body. And if he is dead, then what would be the lot of the people who are waiting for their survival, for someone to descend from heaven who himself is dead? Their fate would be very much like that of a patient who is on the deathbed, and somebody is telling him, don't worry, the physician who can cure you is just about to come. And there is no physician because the physician himself is dead. So this is the sorry state of affairs which has to be brought to the notice of the Muslims in general, and your friends in particular, that this is not an issue which you can avoid as not concerning you. Because Hazrat Muhammad Mustafa sallallahu alaihi wasallam has made it manifestly clear that unless Jesus comes, the lot of the Muslim of latter days will not change. They will not be revived. They will not be given a new life until Jesus descends from heaven. So this is a very vital question. If Jesus is alive, there is no doubt that Ahmadiyyat is dead. Because unless that same person descends, the phenomena of revival will not take place. And if Jesus is dead, then all the opposing sects of Ahmadiyyat are dead along. And only Ahmadiyyat is alive. Because it recognized where the man was to come from, and has found out and has recognized him. So this is a very vital question. Yes, please.
Sir, I would ask to seek your advice on a professional matter. I am a general practitioner.
Your profession?
Yes, sir. As you would know, I am a general practitioner.
Yes.
And many times we have to recommend the termination of pregnancy. Partly that question has been asked before, and I had that in my mind. That was asked and answered by a different angle. My question has a slightly different angle, sir. And that is that when a girl comes in with an unwanted pregnancy, we have a statutory duty to recommend on some specific terms. One or two conditions are very genuine. One of them, for example,
in that case, you must follow the law of the land. She has not come to you to take your advice on Islamic theology. So remain restricted to your own field. Decide the issue on the law of the land, and don't go beyond that. Please. Yes.
My background is that I happened to go to Germany last month to see my daughter and my son. Just only a word or two that Hazur mentioned the Germans who were joined the Ahmadiyya. I myself is a witness to see how good German Ahmadis they are. I attended the Jalsa of Frankfurt.
Well, just the recent one.
Yes, recently.
Quite right.
And I'm quite happy to tell you that I am the witness that Ahmadis, those who have joined recently, they are very good Ahmadis. And one gentleman, we were living 45 kilometers from Frankfurt to our residence at that time, and there was a young Ahmadi who said he joined in January after he was studying for a long period. He was about say 20 or 25 something, and he provided us transport over there. Then he sat down with us, talking in German. My host was English German. He was so pleased to join Ahmadiyya. After this, my question is, I happened to see at my daughter's place a book on Pakistan. It is a big book with pictures giving the political, cultural, and all this background. It's quite a big book. I have tried my best to see if they have mentioned any Ahmadiyya contribution to Pakistan. As far as I know, and all the Ahmadis know, that Ahmadiyya Jamaat has played a big role in the creation of Pakistan. But the historian or the people who write books, they don't even try to mention what Ahmadi or any member of the Ahmadiyya community has done there. They differ to our beliefs. But this is a different thing. This is general, humanity, that a person has done something, even they differ. Even I can praise a Christian or a Jew or a good deeds. But they don't mention us.
So what is the question?
The question is that is there any history books on Pakistan where they have mentioned?
Rais Amrohi is the author of a very authentic book. Rais Ahmed Jafri. Rais Ahmed Jafri is in fact the writer of a very authentic book on the history of Pakistan movement, and it is an oft-quoted book. He has very clearly mentioned Ahmadiyya vis-a-vis the part played by other religious groups, and he mentions it that the only religious community as such which offered its services in toto to Qaid-e-Azam was Jamaat Ahmadiyya. And he also mentions so many very touching incidents, how Ahmadis sacrificed all their dear things of life for the sake of Pakistan movement. So you refer to that book and write articles on that.